Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into today's video. Well, here we are. It's the surprise video that I've been plugging for the last couple of days on Twitter and Facebook. It's a summer 2003 historic video. I know quite a few of you want to see the summer 2003 historic video. So here it is for the 1st of August. It's going to be 10 years this month since we had that incredible heat wave. We'll have a look at it in a few moments once we get through to the August charts. Incredible heat wave in August 2003, a whole decade ago. Seems unbelievable it could be that long ago, doesn't it? But there we go, 10 years have passed and we're going to recap on all the events of the summer of 2003 for this video. Now, before I get on with the video, I just want to mention the advertising. There's green keyword ads on all my pages at gpdm. If you roll your cursor over green keywords, they'll display ads, but if you click through the word, you'll go to the advertiser's website, and by doing that, you'll be supporting gpdm. And thanks very much for doing that. So we're going to start off the story of the summer of 2003 in May. May 2003 was just a little bit warmer than the average. Actually, it wasn't particularly a particularly inspiring month, to be honest. We start off on the 1st of May 2003 with low pressure over the country. High pressure is up to the north. We're bringing the jet stream through across the country, so it's quite a cool, this sort of unsettled start to May 2003, and we stay quite unsettled as we go through to the 5th and on into the 10th as well, generally keeping a westerly influence going. The high pressure is out to the south and the southwest, but low pressure up to the northwest of Scotland. Not much really going on through to the 14th of May 2003. We take low pressure through to the east of the country, bring down this pretty chilly northern wind. Wasn't a particularly wet or a cold month, and actually the month does come out slightly warmer than average, to be honest, but just get the idea from this that it's not a particularly inspiring month. There's no real indication from this of what's going to be ahead. We bring another area of low pressure through on the 18th of May 2003, quite a deep low pressure, about 990 millibars, and we keep low pressure going through to the 23rd and on into the 25th. But then as we get through to the 26th May, we get through to the final sort of 5 days of the month, and the pattern from the summer begins to show its hand. We've got two distinct areas of high pressure that are going to be very influential through this summer. We've got the Azores high down to the southwest of the country, just starting to ridge in here on the 26th of May 2003. There's the Azores high just beginning to make its move northwards and eastwards, and we've also got this area of high pressure up over Scandinavia, just starting to again get more of an influence with that area of high pressure up to the northeast. Now, very occasionally in a British summer, what can happen is that these two areas of high pressure, the one from the Azores and the one over Scandinavia, very occasionally, in some of the best summers, these two areas of high pressure can merge, and you can get one large area of high pressure dominating much of northern and western Europe and the British Isles as well. Doesn't happen very often, but it's always in the best summers that this happens. 1976, 1975, 1995. It's always the better summers have this sort of pattern with the high pressure areas beginning to ridge together and just point that area of high pressure. Now, this isn't a classic summer pattern that we get in 2003. You're going to see as we go on, it's quite an unusual summer, because we do get this sort of build of pressure to the northeast and the southwest, bringing lots of hot weather, but it's also a very unsettled summer, certainly June and July anyway. So it's not a classic pattern such as 76, for instance. It's not weeks and weeks of dry weather, but nevertheless it's a very, very hot summer, and I believe it is about the 4th hottest summer on record. So as we go through to the 27th of May, the 28th of May, yeah, the high pressure really is dominating, and this time to lift the temperatures up. We're beginning to see temperatures picking up, getting up to 25, 26, 27 degrees going through this final stage of May. This area of high pressure really dominating the weather, and actually some places get up to around 28, 29 Celsius. That's into the mid-80s Fahrenheit, and it gives our warmest May day since 1953 across some parts of the country. Go through to the end of the month. This is the last chart for May 2003, and low pressure is trying to break in from the Atlantic, but high pressure to the east and to the north is keeping it mainly dry and settled. As we move through to June 2003, well, this is an exceptionally warm month. It has a Central England temperature of 16.1, which is the warmest June Central England temperature since 1976, and hasn't been bettered since a very exceptionally warm, hot June this. And again, it's the same sort of idea, but we start off with here, which is the high pressure up to the northeast, trying to ridge in off the Atlantic and up towards Scandinavia, the low pressure out in the Atlantic, keeping it relatively unsettled as we go through the month. Perhaps not unsettled, that's probably the wrong word for it, but relatively thundery. There's lots of thundery breakdowns going on through the course of this month. So as we run through the charts, where we see we get this duel going on the 4th and then on into the 8th, very much a duel taking place between the high pressure up to the north and the east, and the low pressure out in the Atlantic. This air mass is sort of battling for ascendancy, and which way is it going to go? Well, certainly as we move through this period, we're bringing thunderstorms in from the west. There was quite a few thunderstorms around the 7th and the 8th. And as we move through to the 10th, well, yeah, we're keeping it sort of generally in this west to east flow, with the low pressure, the trough out in the Atlantic, the high pressure out into the east of the country. This period sort of seeing temperatures on the warmest side. It's not desperately hot, but it's sort of temperatures above the seasonal average into the low to mid 20s generally, but it's not an exceptionally hot period by any means. As we move through to the 11th, now the low pressure is trying to push through actually across the country, and maybe turning it a little bit more unsettled, is it? Well, no, it's not actually. High pressure is starting to build, and we begin to see the high pressure starting to move up from the south on the 13th of June. Moving through towards the 15th of June, then the high pressure is really starting to take over, and we're beginning to really lift those temperatures up as well. We're starting to get much hotter air beginning to feed up with this area of high pressure. Actually, on the 15th of June, we get 33 Celsius at Wisley, Surrey, which is the highest reading of the month. And before I go on any further, I should just explain that a lot of the information you're hearing in this video, a lot of the facts and the figures are coming from the website from Trevor Harley. I talk about Trevor Harley's website a lot in my historic videos and in some of my other videos as well. Excellent website. It has information going right way back to the birth of Christ in some instances. Really tremendous resource of information. Do check out the personal weather historic website from Trevor Harley. Also, the charts here are coming from the historic archive at westcentral.d. The historic archive goes all the way back to January the 1st, 1871, so it's a tremendously long archive of historic charts. And you can find both of those websites, or the links to both of those websites, on my links page, so do check those websites out. But as at this point, on the 15th of June 2003, we're actually lifting the temperatures up into the high 20s and the low 30s, 33 degrees at Wisley in Surrey, which is about 92 Fahrenheit, is the highest temperature of the month through the 15th. And it stays very warm through to the 18th as well, although we're trying to turn winds back a little bit to the west. And this period, this month, June 2003, is when I first started doing my forecast, by the way, at the website theweatheroutlook.com. It's really down to this month, or this summer, but all of this is going on. The whole website, gavswebbiz.com, the forecast, the 5-day and the 7-day forecast, all the videos, really starts with this, and I start doing my week ahead forecast at the forum at theweatheroutlook.com, and out of the week ahead, Gavin's thoughts, out of that everything else sort of blossoms. So maybe if we hadn't had this hot summer, I perhaps wouldn't have started doing the week ahead thoughts at the Weather Outlook forum, and maybe none of this, gavsweathervids.com and all the videos, maybe it wouldn't have happened. So it could well be, but it's down to this summer. But you've got this to thank, or maybe to curse if you don't like what I'm doing. But anyway, it's down to this summer 2003. But as we go through to the 18th, well, it's trying to turn. cooler and fresh off the Atlantic. We're trying to bring the Atlantic through, and temperatures are actually dropping back a little bit. We're going back towards the mid to low 20s rather than into the upper 20s and the low 30s in Celsius. But it doesn't last long. We get another build of pressure coming through towards the 21st, which tries to turn it hotter again. You see the temperatures lifting back up towards the 27-28 degree bar across many parts of the country. On the 22nd of June, it's trying to turn thundery. Then high pressure is starting to slip away, and we begin to get this thundery area of low pressure developing. This sort of takes us into a more unsettled phase as we go through to the end of June. But this day, the 22nd of June, 2003 is quite interesting because there were some thunderstorms with this. I had a really violent thunderstorm here in Northamptonshire, and we had a flash of lightning just outside the house, literally just outside the house. We had a big sycamore tree outside the house, and I think the lightning was drawn back, but it was a big flash of lightning, and it surged through the telephone cables. I've got a dial-up connection with my old computer, and I was on the old-fashioned dial-up connections, but lightning came up through the telephone wires, went into the computer, and it blew the computer up, spiked the modem. I had to spend hundreds of pounds on a new computer. It was really a bit of a nightmare, to be honest, but it was extraordinary to see lightning come up through the telephone line. It just goes to show you, it does happen. They do tell you, avoid the telephone when you've got thunderstorms going on, and it is true, because if somebody had been on the telephone on this day, on the 22nd, when the lightning came up the phone line, I don't know what could have happened. Probably could have been electrocuted, in all seriousness. So advise that you hear from time to time to not be on the phone during thunderstorms. It is true, and I can attest to it, that the lightning did come through the phone line. It came up the line, and because I got a dial-up dial-up internet connection at the time, went up the internet cable, the Ethernet cable, and went into the computer, blew the computer up. So it just goes to show it does happen in these situations. As we go through to the 23rd, well, the thundery area of low pressure is really taking over. This was a very wet day. We had 18mm rain. I just recorded 6mm with that thunderstorm that blew up the computer. Funnily enough, it wasn't particularly wet, heavy rain associated with that storm, but the lightning was tremendous, and there was quite a lot of thunder and lightning through this summer, as you often find in the hot summers. There was a fair amount of lightning, but we recorded 18mm of rain here on this day, the 23rd of June. Quite a wet day. Thunderstorms giving way to more sort of persistent rain. And as we go through to the 27th, well, then the high pressure is trying to build over Scandinavia, but low pressure is actually going to take over pattern a little bit as we go through to the end of the month. And we end on a much more unsettled note with the 29th and 30th, with quite a blocking area of high pressure there, stretching up over Iceland and into Scandinavian low pressure down to the southwest of the country. If you saw that now, after all the horrible summers we've had up to this summer in recent years, you'd probably assume this is the summer sort of going down the pan. It's going to be very unsettled, but of course this was just a brief unsettled and cooler interlude. Now, as we move through to July 2003, we start off on really quite an unsettled note across many parts of the country, but it is going to change. It's going to get warmer and hotter again. The July Central England temperature has an average temperature of 17.6. It was at that point the warmest July since just 1999. We'd had a run of very hot summers, of course, through the 1990s, so it was only the hottest July since 1999, but nevertheless a very warm month. And you wouldn't think it was going to be, looking at this, with the high pressure up to the north and the northwest, but low pressure over the country. But it's not going to last. That low pressure for trough is going to push off in towards Scandinavia. And whilst we have got a very good blocking area of high pressure here over Greenland, we're going to start to build the high pressure back in from the southwest. As we move through to the 10th, well, then it's all beginning to get hotter once again, with that area of high pressure starting to build up across the country, taking over the pattern from the Azores high once again, and going through to the 13th. Well, then we're starting to generate another heat wave. Another heat wave is beginning to build through the middle of July. Yep, the pressure is really starting to develop, and we're building the high pressure in through the 14th and on into the 15th. High pressure very much dominated weather, a classic sort of thundery pattern. I'll go back and show you it again. The high pressure starts ridging in from the Azores on the 10th. It's building across the country as we go through to the 13th. It's building further across the country and going up towards Scandinavia on the 14th, pulling in this hot east to southeasterly wind. And then on the 15th, we're beginning to generate the low pressure down over Spain and Portugal. That's starting to push northwards, and you can guess what's going to happen. It's going to turn into a thundery breakdown as we go through to the 16th. A very, very classic thundery evolution. High pressure builds in from the Azores, ridges over the country, goes up to Scandinavia, winds go to the south, pulls hot air in from the south, and then comes the thundery breakdown as the instability in that hot air generates low pressure, and the whole thing begins to collapse. But through this middle month of the period, we begin to see temperatures pushing back up towards the high 20s and into the 30s Celsius. Once again, the highest maximum is 33 degrees at Wisley in Surrey on the 15th of July 2003, and I think I just gave you that for June. That June figure for 33 degrees at Wisley in Surrey, but I mentioned for June. That was actually for July, so I got that wrong. Apologies about the 33 degrees at Wisley, Surrey on the 15th. Was the 15th of July, not the 15th of June. But as we move through beyond this period, then we generate this thundery area of low pressure, and it all starts to try and turn a little bit more unsettled. Again, it turns a little bit cooler briefly around the 17th, 18th. Temperatures do dip back a bit, but then we start to pick them back up again. And we sort of keep this idea going through then into the latter stages of July, which is for low pressure to be trying to come in off the Atlantic. Notice it's never desperately settled through June and July. That's the unusual thing about June and July 2003. Very warm months, but it's never a prolonged sort of high pressure dominating. You're often trying to get these areas of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, but the high pressure is just right, really, to the south and to the east. It's just right to be producing very warm temperatures, but just little tweaks here and there. It could actually be really quite a cool and wet sort of couple of months, to be honest. There's not much in it between very cool and unsettled and hot and unsettled, to be honest. It's just very much a case of fractions. As we move through to the 31st of July, we end July setting up the pattern that's going to develop for that classic August. And what's going on is that, again, we're trying to build the high pressure. We are building the high pressure up over Scandinavia. We're also building the Azores high in from the southwest. And this low pressure, quite a deep area of low pressure, is stalling in the Atlantic. But through this final week of July, it's really quite cool and quite unsettled as well. There's quite a lot of rain around. Both June and July were wetter than average months, funnily enough, for southern England, drier than average across northern and western Scotland. You don't often get that, particularly in a hot period. But that's it. It's just to show you what a strange sort of summer 2003 was. Now, as we move through to August 2003, the classic August 2003, there's nothing marginal about this month. Whilst June and July we was maybe lucky to get the warmth that we did, to be honest, because it's relatively unsettled. There's nothing lucky about what happens in August. What you're going to witness now could well be perhaps one of the most intense and extreme sort of weather patterns that the British Isles can generate in summer. You're going to see something truly extraordinary now. And just look at these charts and look how amazing this is. We start off on the 1st of August 2003 with the high pressure ridging in from the Azores going up to Scandinavia. The low pressure is out in the Atlantic. Everything that's gone before through June, July, starting with the May heat wave at the end of May through June and July, it's all been building and setting up this pattern. And whilst it has been quite unsettled, just quickly throw this in, whilst it has been quite unsettled for British Isles, but warm, for France it's been very hot and dry. It's been getting hotter and hotter through Spain and France, and that's very important on what's going to happen next, because as we move through to the 2nd of August, well, then the low pressure over Iceland is weakening and stalling. The Azores high is building up, it's connecting up with the high pressure over western Russia and Scandinavia, and yet as we go through to the 3rd of August, the high pressure is really taking over the pattern then. Temperatures are starting to soar, we're soaring up in towards the upper 20s and below 30s Celsius. We're getting back in towards the mid to upper 80s Fahrenheit as we go through to the 4th of August. Then we start to lift those temperatures up towards the 90 Fahrenheit mark, get up to 32, 33 Celsius. Going through the upper air temperatures, you see about 20 Celsius isotherm here across much of France. You have 25 Celsius at 850 HPA across northern Spain and the Bay of Biscay. This is really, really, really intense heat down to the south of the country. And that all starts to waft northwards as we go through to the 5th of August with that area of high pressure really in situ over the country, baking hot, unbelievably hot across many parts of France. People are being killed in this heat. To be serious about this, it's a fatal sort of heat wave that's in the grip of France, and the reason it's so severe, as I say, is because throughout the summer it's just been getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Things have just been building and building and building to this point. As we move through to the 6th of August, well, again, very little change, perhaps a bit of a trough, trying to bring some thunderstorms into the west, but really the high pressure is dominating feature across the whole of Western and Central Europe. And through this period, the temperatures are just lifting more and more and more. So we're rising up into the 30s Celsius through the 6th, the 7th. We're getting up to around 34, 35 degrees into the mid 90s Fahrenheit. Look at that, the upper air temperatures for the 6th of August 2003. We've got a 20 Celsius isotherm there across pretty much the whole of England and Wales. We're above 20 Celsius actually to the south and across France. Now the 20 Celsius isotherm is sort of the minimum for getting temperatures up towards the mid to upper 90s Fahrenheit, but to get to the 100s Fahrenheit you have to generate it for quite a few days. You have to build it and build it and build it. It's almost like an oven effect. You bake it and bake it over many days, and things just get hotter and hotter and hotter as they do in an oven, and that's what happens here in 2003. Now as we move through to the 7th, that first wave of heat, I won't call it a heat wave, it's a wave of heat that's pushed up from the south, actually drops a little bit, so temperatures drop back from those incredibly hot levels that we see on the 6th. Again, we're up to the mid 30s on the 6th. We drop back towards below 30s as we move through to the 7th and the 8th. So we just drop back ever so slightly on the 7th and the 8th, but it's still very hot. The high pressure is very much dominating the weather. And guess what's going to happen as we go through to the 9th and on in towards the 10th? That's when the historic heat wave comes along, or I should say the historic wave of heat comes along. The temperatures drop back through the 7th and 8th down to around 31, 32 degrees around the 9 Fahrenheit mark, but then another wave of heat pushes northwards through the 9th and the 10th. Now on the 9th of August 2003, we widely record temperatures of 34, 35, 36 degrees. I recorded in Northamptonshire a temperature of 35 degrees on Saturday, the 9th of August. The actual highest temperatures were 36.4 in Wisley, Surrey, on that day on the 9th of August 2003. So we're getting towards that 100 Fahrenheit mark. That's around 99 Fahrenheit. We're just getting towards record, but we're not quite there. But on the 10th of August we do it. We get to that all-time temperature record. Across southern England we see temperatures widely rising up towards 37, 38 degrees. 38.1 in Gravesend is one of the official temperatures at 101 Fahrenheit. We record 100 Fahrenheit, 37 degrees around Heathrow, Wisley, Northolt. Brogdale in Faversham records 38.5, that's 101.3 Fahrenheit, and I think the official temperature is actually from Kew Gardens, which is 38.1, again 101 Fahrenheit. I think that is actually the official temperatures. The other temperatures, Faversham, places like that, whilst they are in the record, they are not official, I don't think, meteorological sites. I could be wrong about this, I'm not entirely certain, but I don't think some of those other records are official UK Met Office sites. But that one in Kew Gardens, that is official, 38.1 at Kew Gardens, 101 Fahrenheit. Never before have we seen anything like this, and never since have we seen anything like this. Certainly not through the 20th century. This beats the previous record wave of heat wave, which occurred in August 1990. Look at those upper air temperatures on the 10th of August, this record-breaking day, Sunday the 10th of August. But 20 Celsius iceberg is there across the country. Incredibly hot. Can't emphasise enough how hot it was. For us in Northamptonshire, we actually miss out on this record-breaking heat. Our hottest day was for Saturday the 9th, because we've got a cold front coming down across the country, actually. On the 10th, the cold front is bringing thunderstorms, so it was a bit of a welcome relief. Actually, I wasn't particularly disappointed to be missing out on those 100 Fahrenheit temperatures that you're having further south. That cold front did produce some tremendous storms. Actually, there was tornadoes recording places, lightning, huge hailstones, very dramatic sort of cold front. But it just meant that the north, from around the Midlands northwards, we sort of missed out on all the excitement. The excitement on the 10th of August really was in the south. And then the rest of the month is just a gradual progression then into a cooler sort of regime. We dropped that cold front south, but we stalled it. And on the 11th, I don't know if you remember, Monday the 11th was quite an odd day. There was a very odd sort of yellow, browny coloured skies around with that cold front that was trying to drop south. It's moving into that very hot air. There wasn't much more thunder on that cold front, but it produced some extraordinary looking, strange yellow coloured skies, and it was intensely humid as well on the 11th and on the 12th. But as we move through into the 12th and 13th, we're finally gradually turning it cooler, and it's happening very slowly, just slowly edging those temperatures down, slowly feeding in slightly cooler and fresher air, but it's still very dry across many parts of the country. And notice how close the heat still is, even on the 13th, but 20 Celsius iceberg is still there, sort of lying through the channel. Through central parts of France, incredible heat still going on. We're up above, I think we're up to 25 Celsius, 850 HPA there, and if we'd had another sort of southerly flow, we didn't manage to pull it off, but if we had have done, I think it's very likely through this middle part of August that we could have got temperatures up to 40 Celsius, actually 105 Fahrenheit. It was there to happen. The heat was there across France, but we didn't manage to do it. Instead, we sort of slowly leak that heat away from the south. Still very warm through this middle period of the month. Still seeing the temperatures into the low 20s, but we're gradually dropping the temperatures down to more sort of sensible levels. And then as we move through to the 18th and on in towards the 21st, it's sort of trying to turn more unsettled then. The high pressure is trying to be forced down to the south. The low pressure is trying to generate across Scotland, trying to unsettle, but it's still very warm even at this period, with temperatures into the mid-20s for many of us. But then finally, as we get through to the end of the month, through to the 25th of August, we begin to pull the high pressure up to the north of the country and out to the northwest. We begin to generate a trough of low pressure over Scandinavia, low pressure to the south, putting down much cooler northerly winds. Actually, the final week of August have temperatures coming in below average. We're getting night frost in some parts of Scotland, ground frost anyway. Temperatures are dropping down through this period just into the upper teens, and this explains the Central England temperature for August 2003, because you will think that such an incredible heat wave through that first 10, 12 days of the month would generate a record-breaking Central England temperature. It doesn't, and actually we have a Central England temperature of just 18.3. Now that's very hot. It is a hot month. It's one of the hottest Augusts on record, certainly, but it's not the hottest. There are hotter Augusts at 1995, 1997 were hotter than this August, and there have been hotter Julys as well, into the 19s Celsius for July 2006 and July 2003. And the reason that happened is this final stage of the month, which did push the temperatures down quite a lot through the last 5 days or so of August. But in an incredible summer, we actually have our 4th warmest summer on record. 76, 95, a couple of others are warmer than this, but it's the 4th warmest summer on record up to this point. Very classic sort of summer, and it goes on into September. Actually, I'm just going to very quickly show you September's chart, because it was in its own right an extraordinary month. I haven't got a lot of records for September 2003 because I was very poorly that month. I was sick with an illness in September 2003, so I haven't got a lot of records, but there are some interesting charts anyway as we move through to the 1st and then on into the 5th. Sort of, we're back to the pattern from August, kind of, although the low pressure horizon obviously is deeper because we're getting towards more of an autumnal pattern, and we're turning it much colder up over the North Pole, so we're generating deeper low pressure. But really it's the same sort of idea with the high pressure off the Atlantic and the high pressure over central parts of Europe. Very warm period through the first week to 10 days of September. Then it turns a little bit more unsettled for a time, but then through the 13th we build the high pressure back in again, and this period from the 13th, quite an extraordinary period, because we actually have 5 consecutive days with temperatures above 80 Fahrenheit. Really quite an extreme heat wave for September. As we move through towards the 16th, well, still the same idea with the high pressure really dominating there across the country. It's stretching out in towards Germany, the low pressure all being kept away. Very warm through this period, lots of sunshine as well. Hot, you can call it actually, certainly for September. The high pressure fest goes on in towards the 17th and on into the 19th. High pressure is still keeping it very warm, but the low pressure is trying to dominate up to the north. But nevertheless, temperatures in this period are still up in towards the mid-20s, 77, 78, 79 Fahrenheit for quite a few of us through towards the 20th. But now the summer is finally coming to an end. It's been a very elongated summer, started in May, gone on into September, but as we get through to the 21st and then on into the 22nd of September, this is going to be the final end of the summer, because we're going to bring an active cold front down across the country on the 22nd of September. It's going to sweep away the heat, going to produce a lot of heavy rain. Actually, this cold front for me produced 20 millimeters of rain. There was 25 millimeters of rain widely on this cold front, and temperature drops, or the temperature drops as much as 15 degrees across quite a large area from in front of the cold front to behind the cold front. And by the time we get through to the 23rd, we're then in a much cooler northerly flow, proper autumnal air feeding down. Look at this change in the 850 upper air temperatures from the 22nd of September to the 23rd. On the 22nd, we're widely across England and Wales in the 10 Celsius isotherm. 15 Celsius at 850 HPA is very close to the southeast. The 0 Celsius isotherm, which is really autumnal air, is still to the north of Scotland. 24 hours later, zoom, all of that warm air has gone. We've brought the 0 Celsius isotherm down across the country. The -5 isotherm, which is proper winter sort of air, is getting into the north of Scotland. And that marks the end of summer 2003. It goes out with that cold front sweeping southwards, introducing that autumnal air, get temperature drops of around 15 degrees for quite a few places, heavy rain thrown in as well, and the rest of September was cool. There's actually frost going on across large parts of the country overnight through that last week of September. Some places recording their coldest nights since the really cold spell that we had in September 1919. So quite a dramatic change around in that September. I haven't got a lot of information on myself because I was pretty poorly, and it doesn't hold very good memories for me actually that September. But I do remember that cold front coming through, quite extraordinary how the temperature dropped. So that's the summer of 2003. Hope you've enjoyed it. It's hard to believe it's 10 years ago since we had this summer, and it's even harder to believe it's 10 years since that incredible heat wave of the first 10 days or so of August 2003. Where does the time go? Hope you've enjoyed the video. Hope it's brought back some memories. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.